alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Yes, it's a glorious day indeed, the 8th day of December. The 8th day of December 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. 8 minutes past the top of the hour. Mauli tuina manji okuva mu ggwanga ne wabweru w'eggwanga bintu bingi bigenda maaso gy'otaabadde. Nze Edgar Matthew Karuhanga okubanga nkuweereza olunaku luno ennaku z'omwezi 8 tuli mu mwezi gwa 12 omwaka 2022. Tutuuse ku nkomerero y'omwaka guno nno. Era gwe akyali awo nga weewuunya ki ekigenda mu maaso omwaka guguno nagwe tugukubya amabega. That means we are entering 2023 in style. Mbaniriza nnyo bonna we mutulabira olunaku nno abaturabira waweeru w'eggwanga abali mawanga nga Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain, Bungereza, Washington, omwami Kamuga Franklin ali San Francisco, California. Mwebale mwenna okuba nga mutwegese obwenyi olunaku luno. Ebigenda maaso mu ggwanga bingi. Olunaku lw'eggulo era twalabye obulumbaganyi kw'omu ku bakwatamundu era obulamu bwe bwagenze. Tujja kuba tunyumya ku mboozi eyo. Prime Minister ne Chief Justice Alfonso Owiny Dollo bazeewo baddiŋŋanye wadde bingi ebigenda mu maaso ne mu Parliament eyo. Pacis Namuganza atandise okuba nga elaga obutali bumatuufu bwe ne Parliament era nayo esazeewo okuba nga ejja kuba emufunira ekibonerezo ekinaaba kimugwanira. Mu by'emizannyo Eden Hazard yannyusa omupiira gw'eggwanga okuva Belgium yalemeddwa n'okuba ng'eva mu kibinja. Golden Generation naye yabasaze. Of course ne World Cup ekyagenda mu maaso. Tuyina France egenda kubakanya n'aba England, Morocco egenda kubezanya eggwanga erya Portugal ze bayise quarter finals teams 8 ezikyasigadde mu World Cup. Era byonna tugenda kuba tubyogerako olunaku luno. Nina abavubuka babiri bagenda kuba babeegattako nga banyumyamu emboozi naffe paka ssaawa 3. Tugenda kuba nga tuyogera ku kino ekibiina ekigatta aba students mu ggwanga oba abayizi. Uganda National Students Association bagenda kuba nga balonda abaana abakulira. Bangi abeesimbyewo naye bingi biboogera nga oluusi tebabituukiriza. Tugenda kuba tunyumyamu emboozi nabyo tubabuuza ebibuuzo bingi ebigenda maaso mu kitongole ekyo. Mwebale nnyo mu abatwegasseko olunaku luno. Programu eno ebeerayo buli lunaku lwa Monday paka ku lunaku olwa Friday okuva ku ssaawa 1 paka ssaawa 3 ez'okumakya. Tubeerawo wano nga tunyumyamu nammwe. Asi yeeyo kebeera ku mukutu guno. Programu nyingi eziri ku mukutu guno ezigenda maaso. Tuyina etteeka ki ebeerayo olunaku lwa 2 okuva ku ssaawa 5 ez'okumakya omwami Kato Tumusiime atera okubanga agikulemberamu awo. Twogera ku mateeka nangeri ki gy'osobola okubanga ogayigamu naawe ali eyo okubanga amateeka tegakukwata nga oli outside the law. Programs endala tulina the fancy flow, no program ya bano abagala ebintu bya fashion, tulina Snapchat, Snaptalk sorry, mukyala Teddy Tenjo Nabukeera ng'ali ne Farida Bikobere ne Lilian Nuwedde batera nnyo okubeerawo ku lunaku lubeera lwa 6 kuva ssaawa 12 ez'akawungeezi. Shows nyingi ezibeerawo wano era osobola okuba nga otwegattako buli lunaku ne the interface retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye, tulina Mighty Drive Extra, byonna shows nyingi era osobola okuba nga otufunira ku mikutu gyaffe egy'enjawulo at Digitalk TV or ku Facebook ne at The Alternative Uganda still on Facebook ne ku YouTube gye tuli at The Alternative Uganda still at Digitalk TV ne ku Twitter osobola okuba nga otunoonyerezaako awo wennyini at The Alternative Uganda oba at The Alternative UGA ojja kuba osobola okuba nga otwegattako. So gwayagala okulanga naffe osobola okuba nga ojjako wano tuli Makindye mu Lukuli Parish oba mu Lukagwe Lukuli nga wakayita ka water pump. In fact oba ove Kampala ng'ova side zere Makindye ku barracks oba wakayita ka water pump oba olaba ku mukono gwa ddyo awo Digitalk offices oba ova side zeno Ekonge Buziga. In fact oba tonatuuka ka water pump oba osobola okulaba awo wennyini awali Digitalk TV nga wakayita ku mu wafu wadde ennaku zino baagutemawo naye omanyi oluusi ffe twakula tulaba emiwafu awo nga gweguliwo awo e Boston naye kati tekukyaliwo naye era ffe tukyayitawo wali ku muwafu. So osobola okujja n'olanga naffe kubira programs director w'ekifo kino omwami Mukose Arnold Anthony. Enamba ye gwalina pen eri 0701800212 oba noti 7 noti emu 8 noti 2 ajja kubanga asobola okubanga akuddira mangu ago. Katuyingireko mu mawulire agadde gagenda maaso mu ggwanga ne wabweru w'eggwanga. Olunaku lw'eggulo akawungeezi in fact ng'olunaku lugenda okubanga luwungeera security personnel w'ekitongole kya SGA ekikuuma ddembe ekya SGA yalumbiddwa wali ew'obulenzi n'akubwa amasasi agamujja mu bulamu buno obw'ensi era emmundu ye yabbiddwa. Kino nno kati guno gwe mulundi ogusoose mu mwezi guno okubanga wali abazigu abalumba ne bagezaako okubanga ababba amamuntu g'aba security personnels. Guno nno si gwe mulundi ogusoose mu mwaka guno okubanga twalaba omwezi oguwedde n'omwezi gwa October omwo nga obulumbaganyi butandika naddala mu mwezi oguwedde ogwa November. Ndowooza obulumbaganyi bwali bwa mirundi nga 8 mu ggwanga lyonna. Waliwo abalumba barracks, wali abalumba SACCOs, wali abalumba banks, wali abalumba policemen nga just bali ku patrol kwegamba bintu bingi ebigenda maaso mu ggwanga. Naye aboogerera security forces oba Ministry of Defence bakakasa nti ebintu bino in fact ne president yennyini yakiteekako omukono n'akakasa nti abantu abatera abalumba abakwata mundu yagambye nti bano ba rogue deserters oba badduka maje abalala nno bakolera kitongole kiri ekya National Unity Platform bw'atyo bwe yategeeza. So mu mbeera bw'etyo abantu bangi bagamba beewuunya sorry because obulumbaganyi buno bweyongedde nnyo ate bantu bangi bambi be bagenza okubanga bafiira mu njege. So olunaku lw'eggulo omwami omu ye yafiiridde mu bulumbaganyi obwo era kati abantu beeyongedde naye katulinde tulabe gavumenti yo egamba ki ku bulumbaganyi buno bugenda maaso mu ggwanga nangeri ki gyesobola okuba nga ebukyusaamu mu mbeera bw'etyo. Gun theft yabadde wali mu kibuga ky'ew'obulenzi nga onaatera okutuuka mu Lowel district byebyo bigenda mu maaso mu mbeera bw'etyo. Nga tuvuddeko kaawo ye Chief Justice w'eggwanga lino Alphonse Owinyi Dolo omwami ono yamiitinzeeko ne Prime Minister Robin Nabbanja olunaku lwabadde lwaggulo bamiitinze awo nga bagezaako okuba nga abazzaawo obutakkaanya oba obutakkaanya obwali buliwo in fact nga babugjawo nga bategeeragana si kubuzzaawo. Ekyaliwo wiiki ewedde ndoza mujjukira Prime Minister yagenda n'alumba wali kooti y'e Makindye n'ajjayo omukyala eyali asibiddwa because yali in fact bali bambanja millions ndoza 2.8 million. Nabbanja yagamba mbu engeri gye bajja uno omukazi ku mu kooti yali in fact Chief Justice yagambye engeri inabbanja gye yajja omukyalo ono mu kooti yali si ya mateeka era yayisaamu amaaso Chief Magistrate's Order wali e Makindye. So Prime Minister ono yeetondedde omwami Chief Justice Alfonso Owiny Dollo, of course na Alfonso Owiny Dollo naye yagezaako okuba nga ayogera ebigambo byali bingi we bali wali ndoza nga bagezaako okulaba Justice Forum kiki ekyali kigenda mu maaso. So omwami ono Alfonso Owiny Dollo yayogera ebigambo ebitali birungi ng'alinga agamba nti omukyalo ono Prime Minister amanye waakoma wadde alina resilience y'amaanyi amanyeko waasobola okukoma mu maanyi ge. So mu mbeera bwetyo jo ba meetings nga of course intermediate yabadde Norbert Mao ono Minister wa Justice and Constitutional Affairs ne Attorney General Kiryowa Kiwanuka be bagezezaako okuba nga batabaganya enjuyi zino era bakakasiza nti no bagenda kusigala nga baweereza eggwanga si baaku kusigala nga bayomba nga ebyabadde bagenda sigala nga baweereza eggwanga mu mbeera bwetyo. So olunaku lweggulo twabalabye nga abali wali in fact this is the third division oba court magistrates court here. So je babadde nga bagezaako okuba nga bamiitinga nga bategeeragana mu mbeera bwetyo. Right Honorable Prime Minister Nabbanja Robina of course ne Chief Justice Alfonso Owiny Dollo basobodde okuba nga bategeereza ebizibu ebyadde bibatwala mu mbeera bwetyo. Kano n'akafubo ke babaddemu tebakkiriza mba namawulire naye bavudde bakakasiza nti no boogedde ku mbeera nnyingi era bagenda kubanga beetereza mu mbeera bwezityo. Nga tuvudde kakaawo katwogereko aba Uganda Medical Association aba UMA. Anonno kino kye kibiina ekitabaganya ba dokita mu ggwanga. Twalaba ndoza wiiki eyewedde omwami ono Sam Oledo. In fact wiiki eyewedde this week particularly kwali lunaku ndoza lwa balaza ono UMA president oba abakulembera aba dokita mu ggwanga Sam Oledo yafukamira n'abamu ku badokita ne basaba President Yoweri Kaguta Tibuhaburwa Museveni asobole okuba nga ayemirira mu mwaka gwa 2026. Kino nno kyanyizizza abadokita bakulembera era batandise okuba nga bakuŋŋaanya emikono okuba nga omwami ono bamujja mu buyinza nga bagamba ebintu byakola byali tebipresenting identity byali tebikkiriza oba nga tebirepresenting ndowooza yaabwe nga badokita bakiikirira. Bo badokita bano bagamba ekyokufukamira tekyali kirungi era bo nga bo tebayendosinga nko President Yoweri Kaguta Tibuhaburwa Museveni okuba nga ajja mu 2026. Ye Dr. Sam Oledo mu njogera yagambye we baali bamukwata omulundi ogwasooka ng'agezaako okuba nga strikingira okwongeza emisaala gy'abadokita era yafukamira ate we babongeza omusaala era yadde afukamira kubanga yeebaza President Yoweri Kaguta Tibuhaburwa Museveni naye ennaku zino batandise kubanga bamu blackmailinga mu mbeera bwetyo. Ye agambe tagenda kubanga ava mu buyinza paka nga resolution ebadde passed by the association itself naye ye paka saawa zino Dr. Sam Oledo akakasa nti nno ye ali bulungi akyali mukulembeze w'ekibiina kino ekya Uganda Medical Association. Bino ebigambo yabyogedde mu press conference yakoze olunaku lweggulo. Oyo nno ye Dr. Sam Oledo ng'afukamidde n'abamu ku basawo ba Uganda Medical Association nga basaba President Yoweri Kaguta Tibuhaburwa Museveni asobole okuba nga akomawo mu 2026. Okujjukizaako nno bano bakeekalakasa emirundi mingi paka ne saawa zino ndowooza ba intern doctors bali mu kwekalakasa nga bagamba emisaala gye babawa mitono ate ne gye babasuubiza okuba nga babongera mpaka saawa zino badde tebannazibawongeramu. So mu mbeera bwetyo nabo abadokita beebuuza ate kati mwabadde bakaaba emisaala emitono mwakyuse mutya ate okuba nga musaba President Yoweri Kaguta Tibuhaburwa Museveni asobole okuba nga akomawo abakulembera ekisanja ekirala. President Museveni wanaakoma mu 2026 ajja kuba agenda mu myaka ndooza ajja kuba ekyo kinaggwerako ajja kuba afuza emyaka gijja kuba nga 44 nga ye president w'eggwanga lino erya Uganda. Omwami yakwata obuyinza mu mwaka gwa 1986 paka saawa zino abadde akyakulembera eggwanga. Nga tukyayogera ku bintu by'okukulembera eggwanga ye Muhwezi Kainerugaba ayongera okuba nga ayogera through tweets ayogera messages ez'enjawulo nga agamba bannayuganda ate abamu nga ina abalala bagamba mu recent tweets ezabadde nazo producer basobola okuzikulaga ku screen yabadde alaga obutali mu mativu n'ekibiina kino ekya NRM oba National Resistance Movement. Bano bagamba nti neggwanga tebalitutte bulungi. Mu mbeera bw'eti atandise okubanga agamba ye wa lineage ya Yesu Kristu ne bakaguta era teri muntu asobola kubanga akyusa ekyo. Abo abaagala okubanga bayingira mu bintu bya bakaguta bajja kuba tebasobola mu mbeera bw'etyo. Yagambye mbu amaanyi tegali mu bajja kuba wasaamu naye mu abo bakaguta bennyini. Kwegamba ye gwe yaddayogerako ndoza yaddayogera ku mwami Audrey Rwabogo mba wa muganda we. Ate ono ye naye yagenze ku mukutu gwe ogwa Twitter n'agamba tuve ku bintu ebyokwogera ku senseless politics ezigenda mu maaso mu ggwanga abantu abalowooza nti nno obuyinza bagenda kubutwala because they are the children of the leaders. So byebyo Muhwezi agamba surrender, that is the only alternative when they face the son of Museveni, the grandson of Kaguta and the bloodline of Jesus Christ. I have warned them enough. Nobody plays in my country without my permission. Yongedeko n'agamba I think they know who I am. I love to fight. I have been fighting since I was a child. I will break them into pieces if they do not heed my warnings. It's my warning to the media, those who attack police stations, DRC. He's liking his blood to that of Jesus Christ, a Jew. I can say he is one of a kind. Kwegamba bintu bingi ebigenda maaso ku mukutu gwa social media. Muhwezi Kayine Lugaba avako eno tweet nga ayogera ku ndala yene agamba blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of Jesus. Agamba blessed are those who are persecuted for the cause of the right, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Katusomeko nene yasemba eri wansi. Muhwezi Kayine Lugaba nono mutabani wa president yayogera agamba blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for what is right, for they shall be filled. Enaku zinayogera mu philosophical oba simanyi oba lwogera mu Luganda oba philosophy. He's being philosophical bit ng'ayogera ku mbeera bw'etyo. Kyegamba yoyo Muhwezi Kayine Lugaba ate ebyo bye bigenda maaso mu ggwanga lino. Katulinde tulabe engeri gye binaaba bitambulamu. Ye Muhwezi alaga amaanyi mangi era bangi batakwatagana nabo, naye bonna batakwatagana nabo akakasa nti agenda kuba abakrashinga mu mbeera bw'etyo. Tugendeko kondowooza ali ku Kyambogo University olunaku lw'eggulo paka ne leero ne lunaku lw'enkya. Kyambogo egenda kubanga egraduatinga aba students ab'enjawulo, oba essettendekero Kyambogo egenda kubanga egraduating aba students. Mu abo abagraduating olunaku lw'eggulo mulimu ba students ab'enjawulo era bonna badde balaga essanyu lyabwe okubanga bamaliriza okusoma era kati bayingidde space egenda okubanga ebayamba okubanga bakola ssente mu mbeera bw'etyo. So congratulations muyoge mwenna. Onakule enchandoza tujafunayo ku bifaananyi mpolampola ebisoyisaawo eby'abantu abagraduating nze oba wiiki eyijja tulabege ku bagraduates ab'enjawulo tuba congratulating era gwe oba olinawo omuntu gw'omanyi nga ya graduatinze ku Kyambogo University mukubireko kasimu mpolampola omubuuzeeko wishing a happy graduation. Okusoma kuno nno si kwangu era mu abayise mu kusoma mumanye engeri gye kiri tedious nnyo. Tuveeko wano nga tumaliriza katugendeko wabweru w'eggwanga. Waliyo omukyala Shiran Abu, ono nno yali munnamawulire wa Al Jazeera yakubwa amasasi wali mu ggwanga lya Israel. Olunaku ndooza lwabadde lwa ggulo. Al Jazeera official yagenze ne filinga omusango mu International Criminal Court ICC nga bagamba okuttibwa kwa journalist ono Shirin Abu kwali kugenderere mu mbeera bw'etyo. Jjukira Israel government yeevaayo n'ekakasa nti nno omukyalo ono yakubibwa mu crossfire yali egenda maaso, naye videos ezakwatibwa ng'omukyalo ono attibwa kiringa gwe baali bakuye kagenderere kubanga basigala bamumiisa ekisasi mu mutwe ate ne basigala nga bagezaako okukuba banne be yali ali mu kukola nabo. So munnamawulire oyo ye Shirin Abu era olunaku lw'eggulo Al Jazeera yatutte omusango gwabwe ku International Criminal Court okubanga baguwulira nga bagamba engeri omukyalo ono gye yattibwamu yali y'amankwetu era waliwo abaali tebaagala kubanga bamulaba era bamumiza omusu mu mbeera bwetyo. Katulinde ICC enaaba egamba ki ku musango guno naye nga yo Al Jazeera yamaze dda okuba nga eguwaayo mu International Criminal Court. Era International Criminal Court wenasanga nga there is a motive bajja kubanga batandikirawo kubanga bakola decision enabayamba. So yoyo omukyala Shaa Nabu munnamawulire wa Al Jazeera yakubibwa amasasi agamujja mu bulamu bw'ensi. Unfortunately omukyala oyo mu mbeera bwetyo. So yo Al Jazeera yasazeewo okubanga egenda mu International Criminal Court bagezeeko okubanga omukyala ono bamufunira justice oba kye bayita obwenkanya. Ziri 25 ze zaakayita ku ssaawa emu eyokumakyanze Edgar Matthew Karuhanga okubanga nkuweereza. Tumalize ne Tanzania. Omukyala Samia Suluhu yasazizaamu ebikujjuko ebya independence eby'omwaka guno. Ebikujjuko bino bibadde bigenda mmalawo emitwalo 44.5 egya dola. Naye omukyala ono yasazeewo babisazeemu era sente zino bazikozeseemu ebintu ebirala binagasa eggwanga omuli okuzimba dormitories z'aba students mu ggwanga lino erya Tanzania. Ono nno atandise okubanga following ebigere bya John Pombe Magufuli eyali president w'eggwanga lino ya Tanzania eyafa emabegakaawo. Era omukyalo ono ng'akakasa nti okureducinga ku government expenditure kijja kubanga kiyamba eggwanga lino ya Tanzania okusigala nga likulaakulanye. So ndowooza Uganda esobola nayo okubanga borrowing a leaf from what these people are doing kubanga kibakola kyamaanyi nnyo. Emitwalo 44.5 egya dola gibadde saved. Ziba sente nno nyingi ziri mu buwumbi bwa siringi zino eza Uganda. Ndowooza bannange kankomeko kaawo amawulire gabeera mangi. Yese Wanyana ne Segirinya bajja kuddamu okulabika mu kooti omwaka ogujja mu February. Bwetyo kooti bwe yakakasa nti bano bajja kuddamu okuwulira omusango gwabwe mu mwaka gwa 2023 mu mwezi guno ogwokubiri. Nno kati kiwezezza omwaka gumu n'emyezi ndowooza gigenda kuba nga 5 nga bano abasajja basibwa babateekako emisango egy'enjawulo. Bano nno babaka Sewanyana ye mubaka waffe wane Makindye West, then ne Segirinya ye mubaka wa Kawempe North mu mbeera bwetyo. So katulinde tulabe ki ekinaba kigenze maaso mu mbeera bwetyo naye nga bo ekintu kyo kibatuddemu. Naye paka saawa zino teri bujulizi bwabadde aligned in court wadde prosecution egambe badde ekyagezaako okubanga ebucollectinga esobole okubanga ebalumiriza abaami bano. Babagulako emisango 4 omuli terrorism, baiting terrorism, murder, then attempted murder gye babateekako abaami bano okubanga babakanya najo. Baba wa bail naye ndoza mujjukira ebyaliwo tebaba bakkiriza kubanga basobola okubanga baccessinga bail yaabwe mu mbeera bwetyo. Nga we nabagambye nina abaami babiri. Omu ye Rubangakene Francis Shaa. Ono yesimbyewo kubanga akulembera ekibiina ow'ekitongole kya Uganda National Students Association. Yesimbyewo nga president, and of course Lowel Joshua Muhwezi. Ono nno naye yesimbyewo mu kibiina kino okubanga akola ku bya finance. Katulinde tubabuuze ku bibuuzo ku biki ebigenda maaso mu kitongole ekyo nangeri ki ekisobola okubanga kiyamba aba students abakikkiririza. Muziri 28 ze zaakayita ku ssaawa emu. Let's go for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the Mighty Drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Lowel the Lydian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Three minutes past the top of the hour of 7. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that short commercial break. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. It's the 8th of December 2022. As I told you, we're having two gentlemen in studios, and these gentlemen are vying for some positions in the Uganda National Students Association, UNSA, an organization that has been marred with a lot of controversy, I may like to say that, and these people are taking the mantle from their predecessors, and I'm going to be asking them some, very quality questions in terms of what do they think of this organization and how can this organization be the best version of itself. You can also join the conversation through our social media platforms, that is at The Alternative Uganda on Facebook and still at Digitalk TV on Facebook, and on Twitter you can still send us those comments through at the Alternative Uganda, that is the Alternative UGA, that is our handle, but you can just put in the Alternative Uganda. Still on YouTube we are at the Alternative Uganda. Join the conversation and ask them anything that you feel is pertinent, and I'll be able to read some of your comments subsequently as we're over. I have Rubangakene Francis Shaa and Mr. Lowel Joshua Muhwezi, and they are the people I have today in studios. I'm going to start with you, who is on your debut. This gentleman has been here before. Mr. Rubangakene, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on this show, and I thank the viewers today, and I hope we have a very fruitful discussion as we discuss matters around Uganda National Students Association, its potential, whether it has lived to its full potential or not, and where can it go.
And the controversies that have been mad in that particular organization. People have been, accused of lots of things, starting from corruption, eating money, and passing narratives that the students do not believe in. Don't you think so as well?
Well, to begin on that note.
No, you're not beginning on that note. I just wanted to make sure you know that there are some words that have been said before.
Of course, every organization has its controversies. Every association will have its internal and external disputes that it undergoes. But at the end of the day, what matters is that is it still moving towards its goal?
Okay.
Is it still achieving its objectives? Is it still representing its aims and the people that give it gives it the mandate to represent them?
Okay,
yes.
No problem. Lowel, Joshua Muhwezi, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be back. It's always nice being here and having these discussions. I hope we have one of the many that we have always been part of or even watched.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's always an honor. You're a knowledgeable gentleman. So I'm even happy I was seeing that you are vying for positions. That's really, really great. I'm going to start with you, Rubangakene. For the person who's just seeing you for the first time, who does not know you, who is Mr. Rubangakene Francis?
One, thank you once again. My name is Rubangakene Francis Shaa. From Western Uganda, they call me Biaruhanga. In Kabarole, they call me Amoti. And in Eastern Uganda, they say my name is a surprise. I am a son of a peasant farmer and a son to a Chinese road constructor who lived in Uganda in 1995 to 1998 and left Uganda before I was born. So in fact, I grew up as an orphan and I was brought up by a Komboni missionary priest, the late Father Gino Leso, who unfortunately passed on in 2011 when I was sitting my PLE. I studied my lower class of primary at St. Jude Children's Home, which is an orphanage in northern Uganda, where I stayed for the better half of my life. And then I moved to Holy Rosary Primary School, where I completed my PLE. Although I used to stay 15 kilometers away from the school, so every morning and every evening I would have to walk 15 kilometers, and those were 30 kilometers every day.
No, you used to work out, eh?
Yes, I was in shape, even when I was young. But of course, along the way, we would always look out for people who were going back from work. By then, bicycles were very rampant. And they would give us lifts. And that's how I made it. At one point in time, after finishing my PLE, I was among the best performing students in northern Uganda, coming from a UPE school and a government school, government-aided school. So I somehow got a bursary to study at Lachoma in a seminary in Amoro district, where there I served as academic prefect and all these other positions, even the rank of a head assistant disciplinary head boy for the time that I was there.
Okay.
And I also again emerged as the best performing student from there and among the best students in the region. And from there I managed to be sent to Kisubi Minor Seminary, where I did my A-level, offering biology, mathematics and chemistry, just as a normal student. I lived...
that's not a normal student. BCM. no. That's not a normal student. Let's continue.
I lived through my education struggling with financial positions because I didn't have a strong financial background. I come from literally, if I may say, people will say humble background, but mine is more than humble. And
just call it modest.
Modest.
I don't find anything humble about
modest would
broke.
be if this is the bottom line. Modest would be here. I think I am below the bottom line. Yes, and so I struggled with school fees and scholastic requirements and all this, and I was not alone because I was studying with many other students, many other pupils who were going through the same. And I saw that there can be something that is done that can help. I am actually a product of someone lending me a hand and saying, "You man, young man, look here. This is the door and I'm holding it for you, walk through." Not so many Ugandan students, young people get that chance. And we who have been given that privilege, as it's also in the Bible that he who more is given, more is expected.
Of course.
We have got to be a representation of hope, that where you come from should not be the determinant of how far you go with life and how far life has to go with you. You must always defy odds to give others, you know, the ray of light that they can. I was born actually in Gulu, in Islam. It's called Forest. Anyone who has been in Gulu will know that it's the only existing remnant of an IDP camp in Gulu district right now. I still have my hut there, and the hut is still there up to now. I'm a landlord there. Every month I get 10,000 as rent from the hut. And you see, from where I came, so many of my colleagues that I started growing up with are no longer studying or have not completed their education. Many of the young girls we studied with or lived with are now teenage mothers, and many of them are being exposed to gender-based violence, domestic violence, and the boys who those days were very smart young men right now are either drunkards or they're thugs, or they have given birth to so many children, and the family demands is overweighing them with no academic or educational background. Life seems to have no hope. And for me, when I was there, I chose to be different. I chose that, you know, I will not take that path, not because I was somehow privileged or anything, but because I saw that maybe we can show these people, or maybe we can show to the world that, you know, even from the grass, you can come to grace.
How do you then transition from a high school then to university?
After finishing from Kisubi Seminary, I got admitted to Makerere on a medical degree program, where I have been and where I met Lowel, my brother. He was by then a finalist, and then he came back on law. He was a debater. I've been a debater from my primary up to my high school, then Makerere. I represented Uganda, of course, at nationals and East Africa, and even regional. And when I came to Makerere, I joined the Makerere Debating Union, where I got groomed in being articulate, more research-based and factual. And I represented Makerere at a number of tournaments where we debated for Makerere. I continued with my degree, but leadership didn't die in me. I also went and first day I was at school, I became a class representative. And
it's a big thing.
For those who have been at university, know that it's a big position, by the way, to be a class representative.
Yes, I was representing a class of 580 something students. And then in my year 2, I became the speaker of my college, and then moving into the interim college president, and I ended up as the college president of the college. From there, I decided that my leadership at Makerere University was at its end, because I had learned as much as I could from Makerere, and I had my impact on the lives of the students. I remember we pushed to have a Katanga bridge constructed in my year 1, because medical students of Makerere would stay at main campus and then travel to Mulago every morning. And while we would pass through Katanga, and I think you know Katanga slum, there was this drainage system that would always flood, and there are kids who stay around there. Most times they would be going to school and fall into that. The drainage system collects all the dirt of Kampala that can pass through it, and so many young children there are getting infections, they are getting injured, and so we found that it was imperative to leave it that way. So we led a drive with 6 colleagues in the same class to have Katanga Bridge constructed, and we raised 4.9 million and constructed Katanga Bridge. Right now it is in existence.
Wow,
and
at least we can put that mark to you.
And those young children right now can safely pass through.
Right.
And in fact, the bridge is strong enough to allow certain lightweight vehicles to also pass through.
Okay.
And right now, even when the route to medical school has been cut, the people of Katanga are using the bridge.
Right.
We also ran quite a number of things like introducing...
As you conclude. Yeah, first finish as you conclude.
Yes, from Makerere, I have a dream of one day constructing my own hospital, and then helping to treat patients even when I'm sleeping.
Wow.
Not that when I am in the ward, that's when I'm treating patients.
Yeah.
I want, even when I'm sleeping, even when I'm not around, what I have is helping treat people.
Okay.
And so with that, I enrolled at your YMCA Comprehensive Institute for a weekend program in bachelor's degree of business administration, so that I can get the business understanding of what it would look like. I would do a medical course, and then at the end of the day think I can run a business when I don't have the business principles. And so with that, I decided to equip myself with the knowledge so that I can be in position too. Okay. That is a small brief of who I am, and I wish I could say more, but due to time factor.
No, due to time factors,
yes.
We shall talk about that later. Lowel Muhwezi, what's your story?
Well, like he demonstrated, I have a very long story as well. But
try to summarize.
Just that for me, people who know me, I usually talk about the generational discussion. It's for me that my story is the story of every Ugandan. The fact that we are born into this country which seems not to be able to facilitate dreams like his. And for me, the discussion I usually want to advance is how do we, for example, make dreams of the many that Shaa left behind to be realized, and that those dreams are not at the fate like for him he decided, but most of our children really don't make that decision. It may be their fault, it may not be, but we should be in a country where even those who don't make that decision, the country shapes them to and grooms them to be able to develop a mindset or even an environment that does not create an alternative, which is marriages, which is drug abuse and all those sorts of things. And so, like many other people, that is a country that I live in, and the reason why, for example, I am standing, usually people think that the politics is bad, that the youth politics is worse, and that if you are going to participate, then you're going to give up everything you believe in for the sake of the position. But I particularly belong to a school of thought which believes that if the people who are well-intentioned don't risk, then it means that the other people will always be in charge of us.
Yeah.
So for example, if there is food here and you refuse to eat it, someone else is going to eat it. But the question is, who is eating it? So if you don't stand for elective positions and you leave it for those who are willing to be in the mud but they don't have any vision or values or don't have a story, then it means that the politics can only get worse. And if you have been following up events, you realize that it only gets worse.
Yeah.
And so you can't run away from the realities of our society or even our continent.
But your society is a society that does not look at, when you're clean, when you're too good, you're not the best politician that your society wants.
Yes, but how do we get them to change that?
The narrative.
It gets changed by you or me or Shaa, who believe that the politics need to be better by getting involved and changing a few things here and there. Yeah. And that's my major difference with most people in these discussions. I feel that it is possible. It may not be planned, it may not be like in 2 years, but it honestly must be a beginning, especially given that for us, our age group has a benefit of time. You have a lot of time to change things. But also that you may not necessarily need bigger percentage to change society. Usually societies are changed by a few people with some level of consciousness. So for me, that's me, that's who I am, because that's the belief that characterizes me in everything, especially as far as politics is concerned.
Okay.
Yes.
Why have you come now? In terms of you're looking for
yes.
the position that you want, and in UNSA, an organization that I would like to say has been mad with a lot of controversy. Why are you coming in right now?
UNSA is an umbrella that brings together, must be the biggest block in this country. Yeah. The membership, the composition of UNSA, primarily, if you look at the demographics, given that most people are between age of 25 to and below, and so it means, let's say even if you're counting from senior one, it means you're
from 13 to
13
25.
to 25 or to 30, because there are people at university who are in their 20s and late 20s.
Yes.
And so you have an umbrella which has a lot of potential to influence things. I do not belong to the school of thought that UNSA has not worked, or it has failed to live its expectations, but I similarly believe that it has not been optimally utilized to realize its full potential, because I believe that if that happened, we would have a lot of change within our society. One, you see, to change a society, even how you characterize that our society doesn't care about the clean and the sharp and all that, also has to do with how we shape our children. The truth is that there may not be jobs, but we have very many people going through school. And so if UNSA can negotiate for example, easy access to education, then it means you have many people who don't drop out from P7 after UPE, but also enroll to secondary school. Those people are exposed to education, which shapes them to have a skill, but also have some level of knowledge. Now, a citizen who has knowledge, who has a professional skill, may not necessarily have a job, but that is a better citizen to shape the politics. So even the kind of decision they make when voting a leader is different, the things they consider. And so you think that if UNSA is able to be consolidated and redirected towards working for its membership, such as negotiating or expansion of or access to education, Shaa knows that in Makerere we have been involved in trying to negotiate for easy access to public university education, especially at Makerere. So if you're able to widen this to UNSA level through negotiating with the powers that be, then because you have the bargaining power with negotiations, you must have something you're bringing to the table. So if you have a membership of over 5-10 million people, you have capacity at least to push. It's my understanding that UNSA should be the biggest stakeholder in the education system. And so if we are able to push those causes, then we are able to create change in the education system, but also in their society. But why am I specifically running for Secretary of Finance? And for me, it's a technical issue. That's why I'm running for finance. I find it a strategic position. The truth is that to be able to influence the direction of an organization, it could be a company, you must have capacity to redirect or appropriate resources. That's the truth. And so you want that those resources best to go to, because if we sit as an executive meeting and discuss that these are priority areas, priority spending areas, you need to be sure that indeed those resources that go there. And the biggest problem we have in African societies is that we can do the planning, but you're not sure that the resources that are supposed to be for those particular priorities actually reach or they're accounted for.
Yes.
Now, we have learned the art of accounting. So someone, generally, what they need to account is to have receipts. So they'll go to NASA, they'll go anywhere and get those receipts. But we want to promote a culture where accountability is both in receipts but also visible. And so if you say you're promising a hospital, it should be, how it looks should be a reflection of the figures that was allocated. If it's about transformation,
there should be value for money.
There should be value for money, and it should be seen. Value for money is actually my slogan, my tagline. So why I am running for Secretary of Finance UNSA is because we need to prioritize, we need to budget, we need to plan, but you need someone who is able to make sure that those resources go where they are supposed to go.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me first stop there. Mr. Rubangakene, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked your colleague. Why now? And for you, you're vying for even a bigger position. You want to be the big dog in this organization, leading it, steering it to the successes that you think it's going to achieve. Why now?
So, being the president does not make you bigger than any of
No,
the
you are
other
the big
positions.
dog. You have the power.
I believe very much in peer-to-peer work relationship with everyone that exists in the the leadership of any organization, because it allows everyone within to be creative and to become problem solvers and feel like it is their responsibility whenever there is any issue. When you demarcate positions in the level of powers, and prioritize, emphasize it so much, it becomes an issue, because then it causes division among people. Basing on my life story, I have moved a journey where it has always been now or never, or this is the only option you have, and so it's the best and you don't have any other option when it comes to my education and the leadership positions I've been holding, because majorly I've mostly led students who have been disadvantaged. So ideally, students who have not been disadvantaged in the society may have many other options. But you see, as Lowel said, UNSA has a population membership of over 7, 10, 14 millions. You cannot tell me this all. In fact, the larger majority are students who are disadvantaged and are in the periphery of the country, in the rural areas, in districts that are so far away from the capital. Yet UNSA has so far focused its attention over the years on this centralized areas of Uganda, that's Kampala and around. And if you've noticed that most of the UNSA activities have been happening around here, yet the other sides are being suffocated. So if I look at UNSA and its potential, I see an opportunity where UNSA can offer a lot of chances to so many Ugandans and young students who can, utilize UNSA as a platform or as a body to advance in their life, and it is of course in its mandate to do that, to fight for their rights. Being one of the students who started from the lowest point to where I am, I see an opportunity in UNSA, and that opportunity is that if you look at UNSA's budget right now, UNSA has a potential budget of 1.5 to 3.5 billions, if fully harnessed. And I asked myself, at the end of the day, imagine an ideal situation where we have that. What are we using that resources for? Are we using it in the most important issues where we set our priorities, or are we not? And what problems are we facing right now as a country when it comes to our education? One, of course, there are so many other problems, but when it comes to students, and you leave other stakeholders, it's just that we are not in the best financial setting right now, especially UNSA leaders right now.
Yeah.
We've had situations where UNSA chairpersons of districts have been sent away from school because of school fees, and you see, if you ask, the question is how much is the school fees, they will tell you 200,000. 150, and then you realize UNSA that has a budget of 1.5 billion could actually do more in trying to help such students stay at school. If a student of a sort is not at school, then UNSA cannot help the student, even if you bring all these other programs to help them. I think UNSA has to come down to the basic principles of, can we keep student leaders at school first? Then you can extend. And that's why I see an opportunity of creating an UNSA education fund that can actually help through these other students so that they are kept at school first. Then we look at other avenues. Right now, UNSA has been trying to help these students, but it has been doing it unofficially. It has been doing it like underdoor, backdoor, so that it doesn't open the floodgate. I dare say no. Let's create a system that can officially recognize that UNSA must help those students. And two,
how do you think UNSA is going to be helping these students?
If we create an education trust fund or an education funds for UNSA, UNSA can then offer scholarships. It can even offer student loans. It can offer bursaries to students. For institutions that, for every budget of the year, UNSA can appropriate certain amount of funds that will be specifically meant to help the students with clear-cut criteria of how.
It's what I was going to ask you.
Yes.
So, in your perspective, which criteria do you think best suits these people who are going to be beneficiaries of that particular endeavor?
First of all, we need to understand that UNSA as an association has structures that exist. UNSA has the student body, the student leadership, and then it has what we call the UNSA staff, who are volunteers as per se, and they are now called district, regional, and national coordinators, and then the national coordinator being the ES of UNSA, and some secretaries. And so with such structures, identification of students with difficulties is possible. Two, that application be made by those students when they are in that such difficulties, and a vetting committee is created. And such committees will always vet students for the year and then put across this list even for public display before they are put in the program for that year. And this will help the students, especially from the periphery. We have always had problems of students who do not need being the beneficiaries of very many programs.
Yes, that's the main reason why I was asking the criteria, because you'll find that if I'm one choosing, because I'm Edgar, I'll choose my sister, my brother, my friend, not because they need the help, but because I feel like I should give it to my person. And this is something that has happened all over, and it's like culture in our society, where you look at the State House bursary, how people who are benefiting, even up to now allegations have been made that people from a certain region are the ones who mostly get through these particular scholarships. So that's why I was so pertinent on that particular issue.
And so you see, the thing is that the problem with that is that the cost is that there's only one man that is choosing. There's only one man that is in charge, who is in charge of selecting who gets what. But the thing is, if the criteria is clear, that you have to go through this program, through this vetting, you have to check, like the way the MasterCard program is.
Yes.
It becomes hard for someone to pass through all these unless they have all the qualifications, of which we will put in place to ensure. We will be discussing more and more on how, and even picking. We've been traveling around the country, and we've been picking students' opinions and stakeholders' opinions on how this can be best done. And of course, it's not a decision that I make on my own. It will be by the then NEC members who will make that decision in consultation with the stakeholders and also the students themselves. But as a team, we have also made a deliberate effort to start consulting with the students. And also, I see that, let's imagine a situation where UNSA has a budget of 1.5 billion, and we pick 300 millions and put as a way of helping students get back to school, as a program to get students back to school, starting with student leaders. And then we are paying school fees of 300 or 500 flat rate. How many students will we put back to school with 300 millions? You can do the mathematics. And we don't stop at just putting them at school. Let's look at the impact we will have on the country. If we pay to school, if we pay back to school students who are about to drop out, but then we bring them back to school and educate them somehow, you get? You are giving a chance at life, a shot at life to someone who would have no hope. I've had a scenario where the coordinator of a district calls me and tells me, sir, my chairperson has been sent from school because of school fees. He's supposed to sit examination. And I asked, has UNSA done anything in that regard? And the man tells me the response has been low. I am not being responded to. You get? Then I asked him again, does that student have any relative that is responsible for him? And he tells me no. And the relative is willing to give him half the money, but not as giving, but she wants to lend the student. You get? And you see a situation where that is happening. That is just one district. There are so many others around the country, especially yes. And the response from UNSA has been, they have tried to come through for so many students, and I'm grateful for that. The country is grateful for that. But it is high time we streamline certain things, so that even the bureaucratic response is not based on someone's emotions or someone's feelings. The way you say, so that it's a system that we have to go through. And as long as you pass through the criteria and the qualifications, then you are supposed to get. It's not based on someone's deciding, okay, let me help this child because I feel like helping. That can only happen if it's that person's money, or if it's based on the fact that the money is not from the student themselves. Because UNSA's finances right now is contributed by the students through subscription, annual subscription. Yes, and also you see, maybe the other thing that I look at is that UNSA has the potential of changing the shape of the country's development, and that is in regard to human resource development. That we have seen countries like Japan that has relied only on developing its human resource, and right now is one of the best economies in the world. And UNSA is best positioned to decide and to push for what the students get to go through and what kind of people they should become, in partnerships with, of course, so many other stakeholders like Ministry of Education, National Curriculum Development Center, and all this. But we look at a situation where UNSA is so centralized in a way that most of the things, as I said, most of the activities are happening squeezed within Kampala or within the city and the periphery of the country. Districts like Busia, districts like Kabarole are being crippled. UNSA there is not as vibrant as it should be, or it's actually not in existence at all when it comes to activities, when it comes to things that do matter with UNSA. The problem there is that UNSA has been so centralized, but there is a dire need to decentralize UNSA if we are to have meaningful impact.
Yeah, but even when you're talking about the centralized place in central Uganda, where I think UNSA is more vibrant, UNSA is not also shaping the quality of education that these students are consuming. You're not the percenters, and yet you're the main stakeholders. You don't decide on what you should be taught, but rather there's a system that has been put in place that is going to ensure that that is the way you go. But that is something that I'm going to ask you independently. But before you get to that, Lowel, I want to get to you. And UNSA has had challenges of resources, and we have seen some leaders, and these are allegations, I'm not going to say that they're facts. There have been allegations that some of UNSA leaders have been beneficiaries of state money, and it feels the agenda that many students are following is that has been set by the leaders who are giving them, the student leaders, the resources that are ensuring that or they're happy, or they pass an agenda that belongs to a certain individual. A case in point was, you remember the march that was recently there, led by Mr. Roy Rugumayo. I've been with him here before. And this particular walk was mad with a lot of controversy. People saying, we got students from school and they are coming, but they are coming for something they didn't even know. They came out for a certain different reason, and what they did was completely different from something that they had set out to do. And it feels like the leaders of UNSA are playing around with students just for the benefit of their own political gains. So I want you to comment on that particular issue, Muhwezi.
Thank you so much. One, it seems that so just maybe to slightly comment about that particular incident. Yes. I believe in people's rights to express themselves, to have a particular position, even if it means defending it by demonstrating or marching. I am not privy to the arrangements of whether they had permission or whether the children or the pupils, the students, had had come out to demonstrate from the onset. I don't have that information, but I believe that if the UNSA executive thought that their position was to defend the oil project, even when it's not that I don't agree with them or disagree with them, but I think they have a right to demonstrate, especially if they are uncomfortable with the West or the European Parliament, just as those who are for it also have a right to demonstrate. I tend to be, I don't like it when people say others, when they are demonstrating, they are doing it for wrong reasons and others have a right to demonstrate. I think it's problematic. It makes us inconsistent, especially in what we believe in. But the larger question is, we find ourselves in a system where I think UNSA is growing, but not to the best capacity it should be, not the fastest rate it should be growing. And because it has not grown into a fully independent, self-sustaining entity, which it should be, then it finds itself having to rely on on government or on particular individuals who have the resources.
And who pays the piper, determines the team.
Not payment per se, but what I am saying is that they have not grown to the level that they have a particular level of independence where they can self-determine. And so conventionally they have had to rely on the Ministry of Education, and where we are very constrained also to the president of the country. At some point we had a discussion with even National Youth Council, NYC. They lacked resources to organize council, and they had to plead with the person of the president. And so I think the problem we still have, which is part of the bigger problem of the country, is that not so many institutions are have become autonomous, independent, to become self-sustaining. But can we do something? I think that is why some of us are standing, why anyone else is standing, to make sure that we grow to a level where we are self-sustaining. And I hear Shaa when he talks about these bursaries, but I feel that UNSA will start being as functional when it reaches the level of autonomy. And that beyond merely asking students for subscription, that they can use their membership to mobilize resources, whether lobbying, whatever it is, to sustain themselves. Because look, Shaa would, or you or me, anyone who has been through our education system understands that there are students who drop out because they can't afford meals. Usually government asks for parents and pupils to pay for their meals, but some can't sustain. And so if you were saying, because UNSA last year passed, there was a policy that if you have not paid subscription, you will not sit for UNEB examination. You will not sit for national examinations, which means that there's particularly a share of students who didn't sit for UNEB because they couldn't afford, beyond the meals, they couldn't afford the UNSA payment. And so you realize that you have an association crippling its own people who should be studying, but they're out because the association didn't allow them to sit for examinations. Well, it could be born of a necessity that UNSA must have resources to run, but can we look at how we can mobilize resources? I think that we have all that sponsors or even funders would need the prerequisites. That is, you have a membership which is wide, you have a cause which is for the sake of the development of humanity. So I think we can explore avenues of how to mobilize for resources, not necessarily from government or from milking our students who can't afford a life or an education.
But the challenge here is not...
just give you a direct answer. As long as we do not have a capacity to self-sustain, we are still vulnerable to what you're saying.
But what the challenge is not UNSA looking for money from government. The challenge is individuals, leaders like yourselves, who go and get money for their own political gains, not on behalf of UNSA, but for them, to satisfy the needs of them, which is something that, as you have said, speaks to a bigger picture of this government and this society. We are a society that is of self before we talk about the team. And that is the challenge that I'm trying to egocentrically money from...
Just respond. If there are any delegates out there who are watching this show, all I want to tell them is that is an issue of character.
Yes.
And that when they are in council and they are looking at the various candidates to vote, they ought to look out for those particular tenets. So you choose a leader who you think his character is strong, because what you're talking about is not even exclusive to UNSA. It's all over our
general.
institutions, even ministers, even leaders of associations like medical association. You saw what happened last week. So I think it's not perhaps an institutional problem, UNSA as an association. It is largely an individual character that an individual will.
And you see, what is hurting or what is just mesmerizing about that issue is that we have, that problem has been in the society, but we've seen it on the big guns, like people in government. But now it's trickling down to individuals who are between 18 to 25, young people. So we are just getting the mantle from our leaders and we are passing it on to our generation as well.
The choice, especially for us in UNSA, lies with the voters. Is that really people actually know? You can tell that this individual is like this, but the problem is that for most of the time, character has not been a factor of consideration when voting. Usually it is some level of bribery or populism. Of course, that's the politics we have. We must be able also to play with the odds. But I should say it's an issue of individual character. But I also want to say that UNSA also I have met young leaders in UNSA who have great character, who have remained sober, steadfast, love their country, and they have moved on to be good people and serve their country. And I hope that I can be among those, and perhaps with these, with online, with social media,
yes,
you're sure that the clip on Digitalk will come out
one time,
a year from now or 2 years from now.
The camera is always there.
Exactly.
It's holding you. But ladies and gentlemen, it's 17 minutes past 8 a.m. You are still watching the Mighty Drive Show. I am with Mr. Rubangakene and Mr. Muhwezi, and we're talking about UNSA. I have a couple of messages coming in here. Ethan Mwine is talking to you guys. There is Norman to Mihimbi say, let me start off with some comments right here. To many, UNSA is seen as an extension of the NRM party structure. How will their leadership, in the event that they are voted in office, change the UNSA's bad image? That is one of the messages. And I think I'm going to, before you even answer this particular question, I'm going to first go to you, and I want you to also comment, Mr. President, about the money issue. Leaders, especially top leaders, like yourselves, that you want to become, not saying you, I mean, just leaders like you, as he has mentioned it here, it's an extension of the NRM culture. It's an extension of we talk to this person and we just get the leader. When we get the leader and just corrupt the leader, then we have corrupted the whole institution. And I've given that example that you saw people marching, and they're saying, for us, we are not marching about this cause. For us, we got out from school to go meet the Prime Minister, and then someone in transit made some few millions of shillings, and he went for another narrative. What's your comment on that, Mr. President?
First of all, I subscribe to the school of thoughts that whatever happens or whatever decision a leader makes is based on character and someone's upbringing, of how or who they choose to be when it comes to the kind of leader or personality they want to lead. There is a saying that I believe in that it's in Acholi, and it goes like, Nying Mara Chabun Milwa Konepere. It means that a bad name has no soap for washing. I have grown up on the fact that my reputation is like my biggest asset.
Yes.
That once ruined, there is no way I can get it back. We don't come from very strong backgrounds that can push us even when we have a bad reputation, and that's why, as young men, as we are building up for who we want to become, young men and women, we need to be strong in character and know that these are my limits. This is as far as I go when it comes to being flexible, and this is as far as I stop. Because to many of us, young and those who are aspiring to become UNSA leaders right now, or those ones who are already UNSA leaders at districts and institutional levels, it is not the end of the story. We still have future aspirations that we want to become, and if we choose to mar ourselves so much with irregularities right now, the thing is, will we be in position to defend who we are in the nearby future? I also subscribe to the thought that a vote is a debt, and a mandate is not free of charge. That if the students or the electorate give you that mandate, they are not giving it to you for free. They're borrowing you, and you have to deliver, or you have to pay back using the services that you've offered to them. And if the services you're offering to them is not to them who are the real bosses, because here in this case, the real bosses are the student fraternity of Uganda. And if you do not know where the power is, and the power is with the numbers of the students and who they are and the people you represent, then it's very obvious that you're going to represent your personal interest. Not just the interest of the state or the interest of whoever is holding the gun behind your head or in front of your head, but rather your personal interest, where you see an opportunity, you think you can get it, and what. I am also not with the information of the organization of the demonstration. I also subscribe to the thought that everyone must be free to demonstrate or to express themselves whenever the need arises, even if it reaches the level of demonstrating. And I wouldn't have any problem with Ugandan students coming out to defend the oil project if they so deem.
It was not, the students are saying for us, we didn't believe in it. We didn't even know that we were coming to demonstrate.
I am saying at the ideal situation.
You.
I am at the ideal situation that if they decided that we want to demonstrate or to express our views, I do not have a problem with that. How it came about, I am not well informed, and I would not wish to dwell or dive so much into that discussion of who organized individually, who organized, and how it was brought about. And I think we also saw the other opposite side, who were defending the other opposite opinion coming out on the streets and also expressing themselves. And I think it's a two-way traffic here, traffic here.
Okay. Comment on Norman's question. Many people deem UNSA an extension of the NRM structure. And that is the challenge that many people are saying in the comments. So they are saying, how will your leadership, in the event that you are voted in office, change this particular bad narrative? It's not a narrative and it's a fact.
First and foremost, I will go back to my opening statement that who are the real bosses here? As far as UNSA is concerned, the real bosses of UNSA are the student fraternity, who are 7 million, 10 million, 14 million Ugandans. And being a leader, you must be very, very cognizant of the fact that who am I leading? Am I leading a certain interest, or am I leading the students? And what are we aiming to achieve at the end of the day? Being a president of UNSA needs me to be very, very sober about the kind of the people I'm leading. And you see, if you're a leader who knows the interests of your people, if you're a leader who knows their problem, if you're a leader who knows how to solve the problem, you are cognizant of the fact that there are so many other irregularities or other external factors that come along the way. But if those factors do not help you achieve the common goal of a common student, as a leader, you must say no to them, and it then comes back to character, a test of character. Can you resist that? You get what I'm saying? Oftentimes, we've had leaders who are so easily swayed away to personal interests, so they then can't give in to certain pressures and all. I'm not saying NRM, because let's be honest here, much as NRM is the ruling party, so many other parties have also had interest in UNSA, and they have also pushed their interest through UNSA leaders, and it's not just NRM. But what I'm trying to say here is that it is so important for UNSA leaders, especially at national levels and even at district levels, to know who they are serving and why they serve them. And with that, they must stick. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in power, in prison, being given, of course, all sorts of opportunity to live a better life.
Yeah.
Yet, the one thing the man knew was that, who am I serving?
My people.
My people, and what is their
Their
interest?
interest, his independence.
And is that interest also mine at the end of the day? I do not come just to serve the interest of my fellow students. I come to also serve my interest, which is the same interest as theirs.
Student.
So if this is my interest, can I be in position to forego my interest when I know at the end of the day, leaving this office, I am leaving a situation where even my children or the children of my relatives, of my family, will go through the same problems. I have been put in a situation of a sort when we were trying to push for increase of the medical interns payment.
Yes.
There's a certain situation where I was offered an opportunity to leave Uganda and go and finish my education from Kenya. It was not by any government official or anything, but by a well-wisher. Someone was like, "You man, you've gone through a lot. I've seen you've been pepper sprayed. There's nothing that is being done, and all this, and I would wish to bring you to Kenya, so that you finish your education from here, and then wherever you choose to work, and this is someone who was owning a school, and he was one of the leaders in one of the universities in Kenya that would offer a medical degree, and with that there was a promise of a job, that after finishing you can start
working.
At the end of of course, the interest came, and my family members were saying, "You man, this is a big opportunity for you, and you know, you've done enough." I remember asking my brother, he's also a medical person, I remember asking him, after finishing my education there, will I live and die there, or will I still come back to Uganda? He said, but you have to come home. Then I told him, when I come home, will Uganda be different? He said, no. But then, why don't I make the small change now and live in it?
Yes.
And with that, I stuck, and I'm still in Uganda. I want to say that, you see, it is about knowing what interest you serve. And quite often, the leaders who get up there want to serve their interest that is indifferent, that is so different from the students' interest.
Most definitely. I want to just, there's a question that is intended to you, asked by Mr. Ethan Mine. Ethan, thank you so much for watching. Ethan is always on the Mighty Drive. Thank you so much. Ethan says, what is your experience with accountability, Lowel? The students' councils and unions in this country have largely leaned on the goodwill of the political parties, making them susceptible to misdirection and agenda-focused shifts. What are your focused source of funding that will sufficiently make UNSA independent of political scourges and make sure it achieves and represents the interests of the students?
Okay. The UNSA budget, which is approximate to close to 2 billion, is mobilized through subscription of students of Uganda. That is to say, every student pays, I think, 2,000 as their subscription to the association. So we have a way we mobilize our resources that is not necessarily from political players. I think most of the secondary schools really subscribe. The issue is still, I think, with higher institutions of learning, and I think we are going to be able to put in place a mechanism to make sure that they're able to fulfill part of their obligation to subscribe to the association. But my understanding why also that has been slow is that they have for some time not seen the relevancy or the value for their money, for their subscription. And I'm very confident that, well, we shall push for them to subscribe, and we should be able to meet particular set goals. But I also think if we are able to perform and, like I've said, provide value for money, it will be also easier to tell individuals to subscribe. But like I also said, that we should be able to use our capacity, at least our membership, to get funding to at least, even if we don't get the money directly to our account, but if you have, like he has proposed, an education student fund, then you're able to rechannel that aid necessarily to pay for that, not me having to receive that money and you know, receipt and then also account for it. And I think one of the biggest problems we have had is that people want to hold the money. But I think if we can develop mechanisms where such external funding goes directly to the beneficiaries, then again you would get the same impact with less bureaucracy, with less chances of the money being stolen. But just to answer the question straight, for now we have internal ways of generating resources, which is through student subscription. And I hope that if we do our best during our tenure, the association should be on the road to self-sustaining, so that it can self-determine, and there is less reliance on the government or even the political players, like you've said. The biggest problem is not that UNSA is so pro-political parties. It is that particular leaders who perhaps are one or two, but of course they represent the image of the institution, have their political interest and ambition. And so in this country, there are people who have learned that for you to stand for the next office, you must posture with the people who you think have the power. So I want to tell the public that those don't necessarily represent the position of us, the students, or the association, but the individual character and themselves as individuals.
Okay. This one goes to you. He says, so Shaa, you are looking at students' fund to keep UNSA leaders in school. How would it sound for you to lobby for incentivized school fees structures and maybe free education at some lower levels, so that at least those who are underprivileged can have a level of education? You talked about this, but maybe just rephrase it for him. Yeah.
So the thing about life is that we need to, while we are trying to look at being at the peak, we need to be cognizant of the fact that a pyramid can never stand on its tip. It has to stand on its base.
Two bases.
And if the base is crumbling, there's a way that the pyramid is most likely going to fall. UNSA cannot be proud to say we are moving towards our full potential achievement or optimum achievement when we still have student leaders who are being sent home because of school fees. And UNSA can boast that, we now have a subscription collection of 1 billion, 2 billion, and yet, at the end of the day, there are students who are being sent home. Now, I look at an UNSA where UNSA can be self-sustaining, of course, moving towards UNSA itself doing investments, that it moves far away from relying entirely on student subscription to investments. That it is, we've seen organizations like the Church having the Catholic Church having invested in Centenary Bank, and many other projects
that bring back money to the organization.
Exactly, that the Church does not need offertory every time to sustain itself, but rather offertory for daily running and any other businesses. And I think UNSA should be moving towards that when it comes to finances. It may not be achieved in 1 year, but we can set the pace. We can set the direction for UNSA in that regard. And it's only through that UNSA can actually obtain financial independence. Because if we still rely on student subscription, it's as easy as crippling that subscription, then UNSA is crippled. As it is right now, that UNSA is relying on subscription because it has tagged UNEP materials to UNSA subscription. All students are supposed to sit UNEP, and UNSA does not bar that. But UNSA has tagged UNEP materials. So schools cannot pick UNEP examination materials from UNEP without having cleared subscription. The question is, when do students sit UNEP at the end of the day? So you see, once I will have to, you're getting in office in January, let's say students are sitting examination in November, you will have to wait up to November before you get this money. Yet if UNSA can start now looking at investing, then UNSA can have reliable source of funding, and it moves towards financial independence. So I look at an UNSA in that regard. It is a dream that I pray we can achieve. It is something that I hope the people who will get on neck with me inshallah, will start thinking along that line to move us away from overly depending on people. And you know, people, other powers and other parties and interests usually have their own interests, and if you're not serving it, then you're useless to them.
Useless, yeah.
Now,
okay.
Coming to the point of the education funds that we are pushing, as I said and mentioned earlier, that we cannot boast over an UNSA that is about to achieve its optimal potential, or is supposed to achieve its optimal potential. Yet our student leaders are still being sent away from school. We ought to have done something, and we are not. I'm looking at starting with student leaders and then going down into other students when we have capacity. But because, as the saying also says, that goes that you cannot, don't bite what you cannot chew. We want to start stepwise so that we are not overwhelmed and we are not able to, we are put in a situation where we are not able to sustain and implement. And that's why we need to start with student leaders, then continue advancing. As the education funds capacity also builds up. As I said, UNSA budget or UNSA resources keeps adding up, and there are so many organizations that UNSA can partner with. We look at a situation where we can even partner with MasterCard. We can now start pushing for the student loan scheme, where UNSA, in its capacity, can already start recommending and pushing a number of student leaders. And there are so many scholarship opportunities with Ministry of Education and other agencies that UNSA must be tapping into. But it's hard for UNSA to push for that when they themselves do not have their own, yet they have all these resources. You see, you do not have the moral authority to push for something when you have the capacity, but you yourself and you're not solving the problem that you have. You get?
Yeah.
You look more of a laughing stock or a joker. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm just going to ask about the quality. I want to, because we are familiar with something like 15 minutes, and I want to also talk about the politics of the country. But before we go there, Muhwezi, the quality of education, the system that the students go through, are there any things you think UNSA should spearhead in terms of maybe the system, the curriculum, and things like that? Is there anything you think, do you have any comment on how you think UNSA can reshape the curriculum and the quality of education? Because I still ask myself up to today, why am I studying European history?
Well, depending on what you want to pursue, but for me, the biggest problem with our education system is not necessarily the curriculum, or why are we studying European history, but I feel that the problem is that generally we lack a sense of direction. Okay, not a sense of direction, but a defined plan of where we want this country to go. And for example, like he has said, Japan was also deliberate on its human resource, not just training people, but training them towards a particular frame of the economy they want to have. And I think it's the same thing with Africa. And I don't think it's necessarily Uganda. With Africa. And that we should be able to reach a point where we realize there's something in economics they call maybe comparative advantage. Or what will drive our level of development, or what we want to be good at.
What identifies us as Uganda?
Because for me, this is what this is a picture of the education system I have. We have been made to think that for you to have a successful education system or to sustain a country, you must have only graduates, which I don't think essentially is true. When you go to countries like Germany, there are people whose only job is perhaps to put that one particle on your phone, or even this watch, my specialization is on this. And so I feel that our countries cannot really sustain an infrastructure where everyone should have a classroom, everyone should have a chalkboard, everyone should have a chair. And so we should be able to realize that we can't afford it, because the truth is that we can't afford it. And when you travel this country, you realize that there are most of the districts can't sustain it. Students sit on floors, they can't concentrate, most of them drop out because they can't meet that. We should be able to propose a system where people are skilled in their individual areas. So we involve a structure where if you're studying in this particular district, you can be taught skills which would enable you to go through life that don't require you to have a classroom or to have a uniform, all those sorts of things. We must have that kind of education that is not so expensive for everyone, and that I should not drop out of school because I can't afford school fees and become, I don't want to say unfruitful, but if I go to a mechanic or a workshop which doesn't require all that, I will not drop out because I can afford to learn that skill and it will take me through life. And so the problem we have is that even when you move around town, there are many who know some level of English because somehow they entered school, but they didn't finish P7. When you look at the figures of people who enter P1 or nursery and don't enter senior 1, they are so big. They are unbelievable. You look at a percentage and you think maybe these people are exaggerating, but it's the truth. Most people drop out because we have made our education system very expensive, not just for individual students, but even our government doesn't have the resources and capacity. And so I think if we can find a way of tailoring particular societies or communities to particular levels of skills so that people can get that skill to take them through life if they can't afford this formal education. But those who can self-sustain or are the best can continue with this normal education of ours, I think well and good. But for me, before we go there, I think the priority should be access first.
Access to
where we are, people should access education. There's a proposal, I think, was it in Parliament, to scrap off allowances for government students. Others were even moving to restructure how government...
I think they have finally been scrapped.
Scholarships are given, and I think it's one of the most deplorable things. It's more of a retardation. Because look, for a country to develop, its best brains must be able to go through school. And you cannot shift a system which is a meritocracy. You get my point? That we must have a system where the best students can be in school because they make the best employees, they make the best producers. If you restructure that kind of scholarship to any other consideration other than merit, you're just being a populist, you're just listening to the many people who are making noise and not being deliberate about developing your country. For a country to develop, its best brains, who are seen from, like he said, PLE, USE or UCE, those are the people that government must make sure are in school first. Because those are the ones who will shape a country that will give opportunities to anyone else. And for me, this will be my position if I get to the executive, is to push so that instead of revising that mode, it's actually expanded. Because the debate is that only people who go to the good schools or even get district quotas are from good schools. The discussion cannot be that you change that model. You find a way of expanding that model so that even students from, you can have also an alternative where also like district quota, but you expand it so that even in those poor districts, the best of those districts also go to school. You get my point? And we have this mindset. I have seen it at Makerere University. They moved to scrap off particular courses because the university couldn't sustain the numbers. But they didn't think of how do we increase our capacity to accommodate everyone. And so we have that syndrome. When there's a problem, instead of looking how we increase our own capacity to accommodate everyone, we say, how do we scrap off so that a particular individual, a particular section can be accommodated? I don't know if you get that, that balance.
The analogy, I'm getting it. But then I look at, I feel, yes, you were right, but what are we expanding? Because even the thing we're expanding is, in my end, I feel it is also not working to the dynamics of Uganda today.
Why?
There's things that are changing. Like there is evolution. Right now, why do I even have to, as I'm a journalist, there are some things I should be studying. Why shouldn't I be studying things like data journalism? Why am I still studying the old school journalism of you go report news? Because it's no longer even there, going to go and do a story and then coming back. There are lots of dynamics. Okay, today there is a lot of digitization in the world. And we are still on the system that that thrived years ago. Even a system, just a minute. Just a system that is not even testing the quality of our IQ, but actually testing the quality of us, our ability to remember some statements and facts. And it's also it has deemed some particular set of people intelligent and a certain set of people not intelligent. But then I may not be the best at writing maybe a story, but there is a way I can maybe design a software that is different. Or, you know, there is a way that we've been conservative and we have centralized our understanding of wisdom and knowledge to a certain mode, right? Because if you think outside that particular mode, you are deemed not intelligent. That's why you've seen that it's just today that people are now understanding that going and doing something that is practical does not make you a fool, because it has been dubbed, when you're not good at education, then gendo kolebi mikono.
Yes. You're actually absolutely true. There is need for not just flexibility, but a system which is alive to the changes within our society, the levels of development. That is something we should do. I've seen some change in curriculum, I think, in secondary schools. They're trying to be flexible. Adopt now. I think we can celebrate those. The wins. What I also maybe want to add is that I also don't want us to always look at these things in isolation or exclusively to education system. It's general, it's across sectors, and even if you ask people in like a business, fishing, the modes we use, are they alive? Or even our marketing. I think I have want us to also avoid looking at our problems as just sectorial. It's a part of the bigger challenge. And so the solution does not lie exclusively with UNSA or Ministry of Education. The solution lies, we need a comprehensive discussion of the country we want as citizens, but also that has to do with what we consider when voting, or how we address leadership problems, because it doesn't matter how much we debate here. If I am not voted, or if people who believe in the things he has extended don't vote for him, it's still going to be the same story. And so the problem is not just with our education, it's a thorough thing across the country.
Yeah, but you see why we should have these conversations, because we are young people, and now the mantle is on us, whether we want it or we don't. Right now, it's us to reshape the country and the future of our country. But I want to pick, because we are coming to the end, I wanted also to just speak about, it's not about the students and education, it's just about the system, what is happening in the country today. What's your take, Rubangakene? Police people are being attacked, guns are being stolen, you're having people who making political statements, but they're still in the military. We are politics of, in fact, this is a monarchical republic, some people would love to think. What is your take on generally what is happening in the country, Mr. Rubangakene?
I would wish not to go general on what is happening in the country.
Just speak on, because you're president and this is politics and you cannot isolate yourself.
But I would let my response be concerning with the students of the country, in as far as the mandate of UNSA goes. And first of all, the Uganda we have is one that promotes freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And one thing that many of us are liable to is that we do not think that freedom of speech or freedom comes with duties and responsibilities. And so many people express themselves, and they're free to. They're free to. And there are so many avenues. There are a number of avenues that the government has tried to put to curb some of those, like the Computer Mismanagement Act, Misuse Act, and all this, and Public Administrative Order Act that is also put in place to help make sure that there's
order. Are they put in place to help?
Is put in place to help in ideal.
Are you sure?
In ideal. Is put in place to help.
Rubangakene.
At the end of the day, you see.
Rubangakene, are you trying to avoid the question? It feels like you are speaking in oblivion of the reality in ground. Let's just be open. Let's be open to ourselves. And I think let me just a minute. Let me tell you, we created Digitalk TV with an aim of amplifying the voices of people that are unheard in the community. It's not just a TV like any other TV that is just speaking. We speak facts, and we do not like to be in oblivion and lie to ourselves. So, are you sure about the words that you're saying, that those two bills that you mentioned have come to help the people?
First of all, it's very factual that those two bills exist.
Yes, they do. I've not disputed
and since
them.
the TV is meant to talk about facts,
what is the soul of those two bills?
We would be lying to ourselves by saying that those bills are not put in place to help govern the country in a way. And as we know,
You're not answering my question.
I am trying to answer your question. And we know that they have been used as tools for both interest and the interest of certain parties and interest of certain people. Okay. I'm not going to be in denial of that. But according to your question of what is the status quo, what is my take on the status quo of the country? In regards to students, I will say that students' stand in the country is that we are not moving in the direction that we so wish to have, at the speed which we so wish to have. We are now in Uganda, we are still debating access to education instead of quality education. And that's how far as we have gone. We've had so many projects or so many strategic moves that has been made to increase access, but even up to now we see that access has increased, of course, but it's not to the level where we want. And I think it is now time we started discussing access together with quality. And that's where I come to say that UNSA, being a stakeholder in this case, must form strategic partnerships to help be the greatest stakeholders in deciding what kind of content are students being taught. Because at the end of the day, the question is, I am the person you're teaching. I do believe that this is what I need, as you said, that, and as Lowel said, that we are in a situation where we need to know what that person is able to do. Then who is in the best position to tell me or to tell you or inform what I want to learn or what I can learn, except the body that actually nationally bring all the students together. I think UNSA is in the best position to inform the government of what the students want. And this must be not just because UNSA is in that position, but it has to be factual, it has to be well researched, it has to be based on surveys and what UNSA has done. Because you see, the problem would also be that UNSA would assume that this is what students want. We have so far run a PAD campaign to keep a girl child at school. I saw, and when I was asked my opinion of it, I told one of the organizers, is like, have you actually problematized it well? Have you done research? Or are you using what is out there? Are you Googling your research, or has UNSA made a deliberate attempt to actually go on ground to research what's happening? You get? So I do think that much as we say UNSA is in position, UNSA is in position, UNSA is well placed, UNSA is all this. UNSA has got to meet its obligation of being well researched so that it can actually
make decisions from an informed perspective.
Exactly. Because much as we are given the mandate to represent the students, it doesn't make us to be the students only.
It should be researched.
Exactly. Okay. So UNSA must make its decisions, it must make its partnerships, it must make its plan in consultations with the students. And that is why we need to have more of as councils, so that we can pick students' opinions. And councils must be done not just to impose on students what they should take up, but rather to pick the opinions. And as I conclude, UNSA must create an avenue through even its decentralization that we can pick feedback, pick information from students, and know what's on ground.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
That is very, very good. Your take on the education, are you going to also run away and shy away from talking about the politics in the country today?
About the politics, of course, everyone that is on Twitter, everyone that is on TV is so much involved is talking about. We seem to be living the history we read of our country, but for me, like I started, I think this is just but lessons to us, the young people. It's at least it may be bad, but it's a lesson. It's that you are seeing it there, and so you have a choice to choose now what kind of nation you want to build. If it is UNSA, is how strategic are you driving it to fit in that vision? And so for me, at individual level, I'm not taken up by whether the drama or who is right, who is wrong, who is the next this, who is the next that. I think all this is just a lesson of what our country looks like, and what decisions we shall make as a generation. Usually when I'm talking to delegates, I tell them that, when we're in school and have these inter-school debates, all the time we are talking about corruption, embezzlement of funds, all those sorts of things. So in future, are we going to be the parents whose children are also debating the same
things?
Exactly. When shall our children debate what was responsible for our growth? I can tell you, I'm sure in South Korea, in Malaysia, the Asian tigers, they are debating what was responsible for their growth.
These people were just like ourselves.
Exactly. And so for me, I don't want to get taken up into this whole discussion drama and get excited.
For working solutions.
For me, it's just a lesson.
You're actually right. You're right. Guys, just a minute each. Your parting shots. When are the elections underway? Just your last message to the people. The camera is right there. 1 minute.
The election is going to be on the 19th of this month, but council is convening on 16th, and as the speaker announced, that the venue of the council will be St. Mary's College Rushoroza in Kabale district, Chigezi sub-region. I so want to welcome every single delegate from across the country, whoever is watching this, that it is very important for us to make a decision on who to choose, basing on what they offer and who they are and their personalities and what kind of track records they have. It's very important to be on that and not just to vote because someone has done for you something or has bought your vote or something, or someone has posed an interest in you. I always have a saying that whoever makes you owns you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, who you're choosing, are you the one making that person? Or is some other person making that person? If you feel like the leader you're deciding for is being made by another, then trust me, that leader is going to be owned by the person making them. I so hope that as I moved across the country, as I interacted with student delegates, as I talked with you, we sold our agenda, we consulted, we are trying to build a national agenda for the students' fraternity, and that is you making your president.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rubangakene. Your parting shots.
I want to thank all the delegates who have welcomed us in their various regions and listened to us. I want to continue to draw their attention to the position of Finance Secretary. I feel that it is very pivotal, because if that decision is wrongly made, then the rest will be useless. Because without the resources being well managed, then you have nothing to expect. So I would appeal to them to make an informed decision about, one, the person they are voting, but also the critical role of that particular position. I want to also wish them safe travels to Kabale, and I want to tell them that we shall interact more in council, and I look forward to an interesting time with them. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. A special thank you, Mr. Rubangakene and Muhwezi, for honoring our invitation. It's always a privilege having you guys on the show. We wait for your next time. This gentleman will be making the third time. You'll now be part of the entire team. Thank you so much, guys. Those who sent in those comments, thank you so much. A special shout out to Teddy Tenjo Nabukeda, who was on camera. There is a gentleman in studios. Thank you so much for coming through. And of course, Mr. Mukose Arnold Anthony, thank you. And everybody who has been tuned in, it's been a privilege having you right here. The Diaspora Link will be happening today. Don't miss that particular discussion, and also tomorrow we'll be having Omulangira right here on the Mighty Drive. It's been a privilege having you. See you next week. I'll be right here on Monday giving you the Mighty Drive. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. Please do follow us on our socials. That is at The Alternative Uganda, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything. You can still follow me personally at Edgar Matthew Karahanga, Facebook, Twitter. Good evening. Good morning, Uganda. Sorry.
What
Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.